Raise your hand if you purposely avoid reading popular books because you don't want to get disappointed. Hi y'all, my name is Maverick Moses. I'm the author of the upcoming YA Dark Urban Fantasy Karma's Shoulder Discovery, releasing September 6, 2019, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 3 books that were deemed super popular and amazing by the general population that I tried reading and purposely did not finish because I did not enjoy them. Now, I know that these are probably going to be kind of unpopular bookish opinions, but that's okay because I believe that everyone is entitled to their opinion and every opinion matters. And I'm not trying to persuade you to really not read these or anything like that, because I think that even though I didn't enjoy them, maybe some of you will. So without further ado, let's get on into these unpopular bookish opinions. The first popular book that I did not finish was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. So admittedly, I did not start picking this up until I think like the 3rd or 4th book came out. I knew that it was a thing, but I didn't really buy into the hype of it quite yet until I noticed, I think it was the Map of Days came out. And I was like, well, this is a pretty strong series, and I had seen the movie Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and I really enjoyed it. Granted, Ava Green is great in just about anything, well, except maybe Casino Royale. But I had really enjoyed the movie, and I was like, well, maybe I should give this a chance, and I had heard great things about it, especially how there's like real-life kind of pictures that the story kind of incorporates, and I thought that was super unique. So I started it, and it did not catch my eye, mostly because it was incredibly boring. Now, I will say that seeing all the pictures and stuff was super unique. Like I said, I anticipated that happening, and I was super intrigued by the way that the author connected the storyline and the powers and everything with these special children to the images that he displayed in his book. But I think I read, I don't know, like 200 pages, and there absolutely no action had happened. And I'm already somebody who, like, you have to grab my attention from like the very beginning, and if you don't, then you're already doomed. And even though it didn't grab my attention, I still kept reading because I was like, well, I saw the movie, it was awesome, maybe it will start getting better and it will start hyping up. But no, it was an entire like 200 pages of setting everything up, and I think this could have been so much more exciting. It had such a unique storyline to it, and the way that the pictures are incorporated with the children's special abilities, I thought was just super amazing and super unique, but it could have been done so much better. So I stopped reading this at about page 200, maybe like 150 or so, basically around halfway through the book, and I did not finish it because I just wasn't getting entertained by it. Next up on my list is, what is this called? Oh. Next up on my list is What If It's Us by Adam Silvera and Becky Albertalli. So I will preface this with saying that I am not a huge fan of Becky Albertalli, but I am a huge fan of Adam Silvera, and so when this came out, I was super excited to pick it up because it showcased a love connection between 2 guys, and I just thought that that was so much needed in this society, and as someone who is in the LGBTQ community himself, I wanted to be able to pick up a book and relate to the characters in a way that most other books don't ever allow. So I was super excited to pick this up. I bought it shortly after the release, and I think I started reading it maybe like a month after the release, which is impressive for me because normally that does not happen. But I was super excited to read this, and it definitely disappointed me. Again, I did not finish this. I think I maybe got like a third of the way through. I am fully aware that it was going to be like a meet cute situation, but I think that the way that the meet cute situation works best is if it's done in a way that kind of makes you hopeful that something like this could happen to you in real life. But nothing happened like that in here. In fact, it was actually incredibly weird and seemed like it was just like a cop-out of the way that the 2 characters met. Instead, in What If It's Us, the two gay characters proceeded to basically do really creepy, stalkery things to each other to try to figure out who the other person was in order to get with them or whatever. And that was only after maybe saying like 2 sentences with each other in a post office. And it was just incredibly weird and creepy. And if that happened in real life, like, the other person would have called the cops or blocked them or something. In addition to that, as I said, I was really excited about this because I wanted to be able to relate to the characters a little bit and the fact that they're gay, but I found no relatability in either of these characters, and it was just so sadly written because it was written in first person point of view of the 2 different characters that gives you a really great like understanding or really great opportunity to understand each character and like their inner motivations, but it was just wasted. I'm curious to see if maybe it was Becky Albertalli's input that made it kind of bleh, because I've read Adam Silvera's books before and he is really a talented writer. He creates so much emotion in me. Like, I read They Both Die at the End and it was the most sad book that I've ever read, but also like the most inspiring. And I loved They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, but so I was really excited to read this. So I'm curious if maybe it was Becky Albertalli that made this book kind of dull. Oh, another thing about this is that I feel like when I was reading it, I was like very confused because I thought that it was like written by a straight person. And I was just like, this is just so dumb. Like, clearly this was written by someone who was not gay whatsoever, but it was written by Adam Silvera, and granted, I don't know if Becky Albertalli is gay or not, but I know Adam Silvera is, and it was just super weird to me. Moving on from What If It's Us, the last book I wanted to mention is, again, I forget the title. This is clearly how much it like stuck in my brain. And the last popular book that I did not finish because it didn't grab my attention was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This, above all of those other books, probably was the most hyped and the most like, there was just so much stuff surrounding this book and everyone was just totally raving it. And normally I'm skeptical of picking up those books because, like I said at the beginning of this video, I typically don't read super popular books because I feel like I'm going to easily get disappointed. And that is exactly what happened to this. Here's to put it into perspective. The others I read, 100, 150, maybe even 200 pages. I read 40 pages of this and I knew I didn't want to read it anymore.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
At the very start of it, a kind of action sequence happens, but the action sequence was so lackluster and boring that I did not relate to it whatsoever. In addition, the action sequence also happened before I could even have a chance to like really connect to the characters, so I didn't even really care what was happening at the moment. So even though this book was like super hyped by media and the attention surrounding it was crazy, I did not enjoy it whatsoever and I put it down at like page 50. And then of course, maybe like, I don't know, 4 months or so later, Tomi Adeyemi does some kind of shady stuff and then I no longer really like her. But that's maybe an entirely different video. Actually, you know what? Let me know in the comments below if you're interested in hearing me rant about authors that I will never read again. Okay, so that was the 3 main popular books that I purposely did not finish because I just couldn't get into them. But I do have one more that I want to mention as kind of like an honorable mention, or maybe you could say dishonorable mention. But this is because I actually did read the whole thing, so it's not technically a DNF, but I probably would have made it a DNF. And that's Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. And the reason behind all of this, about me finishing it, even though like I probably wouldn't have under normal circumstances, and that's because I was reading this as part of the Book Fiends book club, and this was our February book of the month, and since I'm one of the hosts of Book Fiends, I knew that I needed to read the whole thing in order to chat about it at the end of the month. But I honestly just wasn't entertained by it whatsoever the entirety of the book. It was incredibly boring and did not catch my attention at all. Which is why I say that if I wasn't the host of that Book Fiends Club and we weren't reading it for the month, I probably would have DNF'd it. Now, for those of you who don't really know what Kill Creek is about these 4 horror authors who are brought together by this like news reporter guy who has them spend the night in a haunted house, and then the haunted house does some stuff to them and like makes them all kind of crazy, and then something big goes down in the haunted house later. It's a pretty typical haunted house story. Anyway, I will say that Kill Creek was definitely written for other writers. Because it had these 4 different like horror authors, I feel like as a writer I was able to connect to one or more of those authors in some special way that most normal readers wouldn't be able to. So that was a huge plus, and there was so many different like intricacies and layers that it was just incredibly meta, but the entertainment value, and I was reading it as a reader, mind you. So a lot of other writers, they can like read a book and read it as a reader and a writer at the same time. For me, I have to decide from the very beginning whether I'm going to be reading it as a reader or as a writer. And most of the time, if I'm reading it as a reader, I'm just looking to be entertained. If I'm reading it as a writer, then I'm looking at the plot, just lines and the intricacies and finding inspiration and motivation from it. But I wasn't reading this as a writer, I was reading it as a reader. And so because of that, I just wasn't entertained whatsoever. So like I said, the plus side of this is that it's super intricate and meta, and I think if you're a writer, you should definitely try picking this up because you could probably learn a thing or two. But if you're a reader, I would not recommend picking this up because it just doesn't hold any entertainment value in it. And so these are my unpopular bookish opinions and why I DNF'd these popular mainstream books. As I said at the beginning, all of this is my own opinions, and I think everyone is entitled to their opinions. So your opinions can be totally different from mine, and that's cool too. If you enjoyed these books, then that's awesome. I'm so glad for you. I just didn't personally enjoy them. But I am curious to see what your opinions are on all of these books that I mentioned in this video, and I'm really curious to see if there are any other really popular books that you've read that you did not finish because you just couldn't get into them. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, and again, just let me know in the comments below what DNF books that you have that were deemed very popular by mainstream people. My debut novel, Karma's Children Discovery, releases September 6th, 2019. I will leave links to where you can add it to your Goodreads list on the links below. It's not available for pre-order quite yet, but I am working on it. So if you see this and just, go to the description link, and it might be available the moment that this video goes up, we'll see. Be sure to follow me on Instagram for more on my TBR list and my whole author life and author journey, as well as to see updates on the release of Karma's Children's Discovery. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye!